Gerald W. Brister, and we had our series here about the greats in welding. We're going to talk about Mr. John Wormley. Mr. John Wormley was one of the senior pipeline engineers for the Alaska pipeline, the Trans-Alaska, the first one. And like I said, if you guys don't know, the second one's it's in the process of going. Donald Trump and the Alaska government are deciding to go ahead with this thing. Looks like a go to me if you're interested. So young man, go north, go northwest. We're talking Mr. Wormley, and this will be the last one in our little series. And what we're going to talk about today is all of you guys have heard that if you put a beaten hot pass in a pipeline, you have to have it welded out within 72 hours. I've been hearing that all of my welding life. And so when I got to work with Mr. Wormley, we were out here on a project that had some problems and turned in a pretty good little war. Eventually he was brought out and he figured out the problem. The problem was magnetism, like I said in the last video. So I got to make the repairs and I got to spend a lot of time with him. He and I got to spend a lot of time, and if the repairs were causing magnetism, then the gas company paid for it. If they were bad without the magnetism, we paid for it. So I got to spend about a week, 10 days with him. Can't remember exactly. So I got to ask him a lot of questions, and he was a really good man, I thought. So during that time, one of my questions was, Mr. John, I said, this thing you hear about the 72 hours, you have to have everything filled and capped in 72 hours. I've asked, I don't know how many different people, engineers on jobs, and nobody could ever tell me why. And I said, I'm half Cajun, and we got to be curious, so I'm curious what the deal is. And I said some years ago, I think it was the early 70s, a big refinery was built in Louisiana. I used to pass it when I'd go offshore all the time. It was built by a company that is very well known, and I'd like to tell you who they are because I don't really like them. And but you would know who they are. They built a refinery. About 20 years later now, 20 years, I had a friend that was doing some work in there. And they did some work on the flare line that takes the gas and dumps it out. If they got a problem, they light it. You guys are familiar with flares. You have to burn it off. You can't just put it in the air. He told me that when they got in there and got to doing work on that flare, they found out that the flare line from the plant out to that flare had been put in the ground with just beads and hot passes in it and nothing else, and it had been in there for 20 years. So I've seen things where, like that, 20 years, beaten hot pass. You've heard, I've heard, that a beaten hot pass, 60-70% of the strength of the weld. So I'm telling Mr. John this, and he just looked at the ground and he's kind of smiling. And I said, so can you enlighten me about why we have to have the pipeline done in 72 hours? And this is what he told me. He said, after I got back from the Alaska pipeline, I was in a lot of big projects, and he was. I did a little study on him and found out as well. Main lines, big contractors, union contractors, mostly on big jobs back then at least. And he said one day he got a call from a major pipeline contractor doing a big mainline job, big pipe. And they were wondering, and they were concerned because they had a big storm coming in, and it was going to last for several days. And they wanted to know how long they could leave the pipe with just a beaten hot pass. They had good production, they were way out ahead, and it was probably going to be several days before they could go back in there. Mr. John said he couldn't think of anything right then. He said, let me think about it, I'll call you back. So he said, I thought about it, and I did a little research real quick, and he said, I couldn't think of any reason that would hurt that pipe for being in there with just a beaten hot pass for however long. And he said, if they were really concerned about it, he said, so I called them back, and they wanted an answer, and I'm supposed to be Mr. Pipeline. So I said, well, how long is it going to be before your storm gets there? And they said, well, it could be 72 hours plus. So he said, I stopped for a minute, and I said, 72 hours. And he said, they thanked me. And after that, all of a sudden, I started hearing people talking about you got to have things beaten hot, you got to have them filled and capped before 72 hours. And he said, the best I know, Gerald, he said, it all started with me telling them 72 hours. I'm Gerald W. Brister. You have a good day.